First of all, I think most investors are now going to be successful because they will do something or the other to shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, we can only say this is what you should do, but most investors, generally speaking, are not going to be successful. Most index investors are also not going to be successful because they are not buying the index for the right reasons. Today, index investing is more of a fad than a transition from active management to passive management. Today, investors see investing do well, index funds do well, ETFs do well, and they want a slice of that pie in their portfolio. Tomorrow, something else will change and they want a slice of that. They want gold, they want more of gold. When they see mid caps move up, they want more of mid caps. So that is the most immature thing to do. You cannot, be invested in the thing that goes up the highest in a year.
Welcome back to a very special episode of Let's Get Rich with Pattu. And you can already see why, right? It's a very thrilling moment when we reach out to one of the people from our very valued audience who writes into us and they agree immediately to come onto the show. Of course, it's a thrill to us. I'm not sure if it's a thrill to all the viewers and listeners. I have a feeling it will because today we have a listener who wrote in. I started the episode saying it's a thrilling feeling with a not so thrilling question or a not so thrilling reason to write into us. And we'll dive into that. When listeners join our show, the show just goes to another level. And you'll understand why. Because we have a very strong feeling that the content of this episode will touch a nerve, will strike a chord with a lot of you. Because if you remember, Pattu on one of the previous episodes and I spoke about how it feels to be broke. It's just a very suffocating feeling, not a nice feeling at all. And Divakar, ironically, wrote in with something similar, but something very different. So, firstly, Divakar, welcome to the show. Pattu, welcome to the show. I'm really excited about this episode. Pattu, how are you doing before we move to Divakar?
I'm doing great. Refreshing break, and I'm very happy Divakar is here with us. And I encourage more listeners and viewers also to come onto the show and share their stories, and we can discuss personal finance much more in a much more insightful way.
Absolutely. Everyone remembers Shubham on the early retirement episode. Everyone remembers Varun and Ria on the freelancing episode. And Divakar, you are from that small community who I hope inspires many more listeners and viewers to come into the show. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do, etc.
Thanks, Siddhartha. So, firstly, I'm a huge fan of Pattu sir and Siddhartha, your podcast series as well. So, I've been following Pattu sir for the past 6 to 8 months and your podcast series as well for the last 2 to 3 months, Siddhartha. So, I'm basically a software engineer. So, I'm based out of Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu. So, I've been investing for the past 3 years, specifically from, if I'm not wrong, from June of 2020. Uh, it's been a smooth ride so far. Basically, because I started investing after the COVID crash, it's been a smooth ride for me so far. The only time in which my portfolio has gone into the red has been in mid 2022 during the Russia-Ukraine war. And that too, not by much, by only some 1% or 2%. That's it. So I've been pretty confident about my investing journey. However, recently, I came to know from a friend. So he's a friend I used to work with. That he has lost a lot of money in the stock market, around 3 to 4 years salaries worth. Now, I was not privy to how he approached the stock market and how he lost it. For all I know, he could have done trading or he could have dumped it all in some penny stock and lost it all. I know we all read stories like this every day, right? In blogs and everything that, people lose money in the stock market. But when you hear it from someone you know, when you hear it from someone you're close to, it just hits you, it just hits you differently. I don't know, it just sends a little shiver down your spine, if I could say that. It's just like an example of, we hear, I mean, news about thousands of accidents happening in the road every day. But when it happens to someone close to us or someone known to us, the next time we go on road, we are a little bit more careful. So that's the place I am in right now. Basically, I have two voices in my head right now. One saying that okay, you are following all the good practices of investing, and you'll be good, you'll do good, you'll be safe. There's another voice which came up recently, which said, look. mutual funds are subject to market risks, and anything could happen at any point of time. And yeah, I mean, there's no specific return that we should expect from the stock market, right? So that's the another voice. So this voice is telling me that put it into safe instruments like FT for the long term itself. Uh, I know, because I've seen producer. I know that putting it into safe instruments like FT won't help us beat inflation, the cost of cutting chai, basically. But this voice is also telling me, all right, if your monthly expenses is, let's say, 30,000 a month, down the line, if you put it into safe instruments, yes, you will not be able to maintain the 30,000 a month, 30,000 a month journey, but at least you'll be able to maintain a 20,000 a month journey. So rather, if I put it into the unsafe instruments, there's a chance that it could go crashing down altogether. So this voice is telling me that a bird in hand is worth two in the bush. So that's the place I'm coming from, and that's what I wanted to ask you.
Firstly, it saddens me that we are doing this virtually, because if Pattu and I were there with you, we would have patted you on your back for your superb attitude towards it all, your balanced thought process, and the acknowledging of your emotions and feelings. Right. With that, Pattu, entirely over to you. I'm going to take a back seat.
Yeah, so Diwakar, that was quite something. So you are in your early 30s, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
So you have, I would say, about 25 years to retirement, approximately. 50s, 50 to 55. That's the kind of ballpark period when you hope to, stop regular working. After that, you can freelance and so on. So approximately 20, 25 years. That's very important to keep in mind at all times, especially when those thoughts of equity ups and downs come to you. I would say that if I look back in my own journey, I started investing in June 2008, and I would say that the best thing that ever occurred to me was the first 5 years, and I've talked about this innumerable number of times. Most people, viewers, readers, everybody would be annoyed hearing it again, but I have to say it again. For the first 5 years until late 2003, my portfolio was every day in red. 2013, November, December 2013. It was every day in red. It was zero. So for the first 5 years, my returns were zero. It was nothing. And that was the best thing that happened to me, because during that time, I dumped in a lot of money. And when the market changed, when the the tide changed and the market started zooming up, I made a huge amount of money very quickly, because of all the capital that was already invested in the stock market. So when I look at that and look at your journey so far, I think you have had a very smooth ride so far, right? And I think you should not expect that to continue. Let's be very clear about that. I think you should be prepared to lose a lot of money, 20-30% losses in the stock market I would say every 7 to 10 years, there will be a huge fall, approximately. I mean, you can't predict these things, but there'll be a huge market crash. And what is more dangerous than that is a kind of uncertain period where the market does nothing. For example, in your own journey, if you look at the returns in the last year, I think the Sensex the Nifty or the Sensex grew by 20, 21%, 22%. But most of that came in the last quarter, from October, November, December quarter. For the first few months, it was flat. And for the months before that as well, it was flat. So even within your journey, there's something called self-similarity or the fractal nature of stock markets. I'll talk about that later. But within your journey, you've already seen a sideways market. It's a very short sideways market. It lasted for only about a year, maybe 15 months or so. And then you've seen an uptick. So the number one lesson from the stock market, however long we stay invested, is that market returns are always going to be clumped. We're not going to get smooth returns. Suddenly it will, there'll be a huge deluge, there'll be a flood, then there'll be a drought, then there'll be a little drizzle here and there. So especially for people like you who have at least 2 decades of active gainful employment ahead of you, the best thing that one can do is ignore everything else. Look at your own needs, look at your own portfolio, systematically dump in as much money into the stock market, but within the desired asset allocation. Now, you had mentioned in your letter that you had already are aware of asset allocation, rebalancing, etc. That is something most investors, don't take seriously. So you are already doing those things right. So I would, my suggestion to you is, first of all, be ready for losses, because the losses are just around the corner. They will happen. Of course, what happened to your friend, my guess is it is not something that's going to be happening to you, because I don't think that looks like a kind of systematic investing situation, because people have not, people who have invested systematically in mutual funds for the past few years have not lost that kind of money, aside from the COVID crash. After that, at least after that, since you have invested after that. So I think it looks like a case of concentrated risk. Concentrated risk in stock market is when people bet a lot of money on a single stock, either for investing or for trading, or they put all money or most money in one type of investment, for example, like trading. So that is the kind of risk I think your friend has faced, and he has suffered the consequences of that. And I see that it's across ages. A few days ago, a colleague asked me, my mother, who is into her 70s, wants to do trading. I said, no, don't do that. But he said, he said he's already made a lot of money. That's fine, but then that'll quickly change, and then you know how it is. So it's the lure of the trading is very difficult to overcome today. But I think that's a different story. But for you, I think you may not get into that kind of situation, but you should still be prepared for losses. But like we've talked about in this show before, as long as you have a goal in mind, as long as you understand that beating inflation is not just getting a better return, because return is something that you cannot control. Inflation is also something you can't control, but you know that inflation is like 5 to 7% here and there, depending on when you look. And you can't say, I'm going to beat that. That's not true for, the inflation for your goal may be higher. For example, for a children's goal, for education goal, maybe it's much significantly higher. Even retirement, considering lifestyle expenses, I'll say 7-8% inflation is the norm. So I think we should focus on just one thing: the corpus. Is my corpus growing? I should have an expected growth rate of the corpus, and I should look at where my actual corpus is in that journey at any point in time, once a year. Right? As long as I'm close, don't worry too much. Focus on the asset allocation, focus on a regular periodic rebalancing, and also have a plan to reduce equity allocation systematically well before you start retiring or for your other goals. So those are the basics. If you have that in place, I think you don't need to worry too much. You should tell yourself. That's why I keep telling people. Okay, before I get to that, if you have any questions, either of you can stop me. I don't want to keep rambling on.
Divakar, anything?
No, actually, yeah. I understand where Pattu sir is coming from. I think it's the same thing. Basically, when it happens, right, to someone close to you, it just hits differently. So that's what it shook me a little bit. But yeah, I think the basics are sound. If we have all the basics in place, like asset allocation, all those things, I think we should be good. But yeah,
Perhaps I'll put it this way, Divakar, and Pattu, if you'll allow me, right? Here are Pattu sir and Siddhant, these virtual people that you're watching on YouTube. And there you have a close friend who you've grown up with, flesh and blood next to you, having a genuinely real bad experience. It could be a friend, it could be your dad who's saying, what the hell are you doing with your hard-earned money? Put it into a fixed deposit. It's down to trust. It's down to the truth, right? And a close friend recently told me, in this day and age we live in, the truth does not matter. It's all about the narrative. Maybe I'm going off topic, but politics and religion, it's all now about the narrative. What the actual truth of the matter is, sadly, does not exist. So it's a matter of trust and truth, Pattu. And how does one get the confidence to know one is on the right path?
So
Perhaps that is what he's trying to say.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to say, Divakar, that you are also going to lose money. Be prepared for that. That's my first idea. You are also going to lose money, but I don't think you're going to lose money in the fashion that your friend did.
Okay.
Because see, your friend has lost money at a time when people investing in a diversified stock portfolio like a mutual fund have not lost money.
Correct.
Therefore, your friend has been doing something very different, right? So I don't, first of all, you should tell yourself that is a different situation. That's not relevant to what I'm doing.
Okay.
Second, even for people investing in a diversified portfolio, they will also lose money. And you should be prepared for that. That's how equity is going to be. Because if you beating inflation is not possible without losses. If you want steady, determined, predetermined returns, then you cannot beat inflation. You're guaranteed to not beat inflation. If you want to have a chance of beating inflation, then you must allow your portfolio returns to fluctuate. But have you taken care of the basics? One, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Have you taken care of a diversified stock portfolio? Just buy the Nifty or the Sensex, you're done. You got all the diversification you need. You don't need anything else. Have you got an asset allocation? You need a good amount of fixed income in your portfolio. I would recommend anywhere between 40 to 50% fixed income at all times. Minimum. After that, as you head towards retirement, in the last decade of your retirement, you can gradually increase the fixed income component. So that fixed income is what is going to give your portfolio the stability. When the market is crashing, your portfolio will still have some corpus. That's why I said, don't worry about returns that happen, every month, every year, and so on in the market. That's not in your control. But what's in your control is, are you close to that target the target goal corpus growth? If I'm close, that's fine. I'm on the right path. You don't need to worry about it. So that's why I keep telling myself, whenever I need to, and I tell others, use emotional logic. I've talked about this, I think, some time back. Tell yourself, if you don't stay invested in the stock market, if you pull out now, a lot of people at the time that we are making this episode are already thinking of stopping investments, pulling out of the stock market because it's an all-time high. It's a dumb thing to do. Because it's the worst thing you can do. Especially when you're young and your goals are far away, you have to keep investing money at all times. That's the only way. But tell yourself the past is not going to be there. I'm fairly sure if you have seen 30%, 40% growth in 1 year, the next year is going to be subdued. You're going to probably make a loss, right? That's how it's going to be. But what I mean by emotional logic is, tell yourself, I must be financially independent in retirement. I will not depend on others. I will not come to a stage where I have to reduce my lifestyle, where I can say, oh no, I can't afford a smartphone anymore. I have to settle for a feature phone. I have to cut down on my OTT platform subscriptions. I have to cut cable because I don't have money. That is not the kind of situation I want to be in retirement, where I'm dependent on others or where I have to reduce my lifestyle. That is the goal. And that goal is 20-25 years away for you. So you have all the time in the world to manage the risk associated with the stock market, to, if I would say, outlive that risk in a sense, that the risk is going to be there. It's going to be, okay, for example, let's say there's a Lok Sabha elections coming up next May. What if there's a hung parliament? What if there's no, then the stock market will, it will not move up for a long time. There's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years of side. What that happens? You should tell yourself that doesn't matter. I'm still looking at my goal. I will wait for the market to move because I have the time. I have the balanced portfolio because I have the fixed income that's also growing at a reasonable pace. And that's the kind of emotional logic I'm talking to. I'm very, very sure it's not easy, but you have to tell yourself that you're doing it right, and you have to be prepared for losses.
Perhaps I can put it this way also, Pattu and Divakar. Perhaps what Pattu's saying without not saying is it takes experience. And speaking from my personal experience as well, right at the start of it, I even went for a 3-month BSc course, Pattu. Perhaps I've never revealed it on this episode, right? On this show. And after that course, you felt such a high of confidence. Now you know how the markets work, etc. And I had terrible losses after that, right? And I can't begin to describe, Divakar, it's perhaps what your friend is going through as well. And we'll get to your friend. Perhaps if Pattu can address what your friend can do, should do from this point on. That feeling of dread is so vivid in my mind. I didn't tell my family about it. I didn't tell my closest friends about it. My mood was ruined for days and weeks on end. But I just kept investing. And now I've come to a stage maybe 10, 12 years later where literally a few lakhs a day up and down does not bother me, right? You understand that perhaps this is all notional, but it does take in. Some people learn it very fast, this emotional detachment. Some people still, maybe after 10, 20 years, they get into a cold sweat when they see money going down, right? Because it is what it is, but experience is a big part of it. I hope we've kind of answered your question in a certain way of how to deal with these emotions of losing a lot of money. But if Divakar's friend is listening, what could be the next steps?
I think if you had lost it because of trading or concentrated bets, I would say stop doing that. And the loss is going to hurt like hell. Nobody can assuage that loss. You are going to go through that pain. Well, you have to think of it as a scar. The scar tells us, like, I think Hannibal Lecter says that in one of the movies. Scars tell us that the past was real. So it's going to be a scar, and it's you're going to think of it as a lesson and start goal-based investing. All the answers for investing, the strategies, the best products, everything lie within. The mistake that people do is look for it elsewhere. Everything lies within us. We have to find suitable products, a suitable strategy, not the best product or the best strategy. So I would suggest do goal-based investing. Preferably, I would say start off with a SEBI registered fee only advisor. Pay a little more to an advisor and just give them the reins to your portfolio, and you focus on growing your income, developing your career, and I think slowly over time the wounds will heal.
Divakar, any further questions? I have 2 more, but over to you. If there are any thoughts as you listen to us.
No, Siddharth. I think it was reassuring to hear Pattu sir say that. Yeah, I know. I think scar, I think that's probably the apt word for it. I think it would be a scar. It's how we kind of like
let it heal.
Let it heal and cross that obstacle. I think that's how, that is what will define us, I think. Yeah.
But to push you on a couple of points, around 3 or 4 years ago, you'd release a video, and I urge all our listeners and viewers to try and search for it, where you said because you said it in this episode as well, right? Just use an index fund. The video was about how most index investors will never be successful. So if you could summarize what that video is about and what your thought behind saying such a statement was, because I assume, Divakar, and a lot of people who think through their journey and think very rationally of it, you say put 50% in equity. If they put that 50% in equity in an index fund, why did you make that statement that most index investors will never be successful?
I write so much crap that half the time I forget what I said.
It really is not, Pattu. There's always a thought behind it.
I think the gist of it is that, well, first of all, I think most investors are now going to be successful because they will do something or the other to shoot themselves in the foot. We can only say this is what you should do, but most investors, generally speaking, are not going to be successful. Most index investors are also not going to be successful because they are not buying the index for the right reasons. Today, index investing is more of a fad than a transition from active management to passive management. Today, investors see investing do well, index funds do well, ETFs do well, and they want a slice of that pie in their portfolio. Tomorrow, something else will change and they want a slice of that. They want gold, they want more of gold. When they see mid caps move up, they want more of mid caps. So that is the most immature thing to do. You cannot, be invested in the thing that goes up the highest in a year. And when you see something grow or go up, that probably means the party is already over. And after you invest, it will come down. That's how it works. Not the law of averages. It's a wrong, technically it's not a correct thing to say. But yeah, crudely, you know what that means. So that's not how it works. And I think people are buying index funds for the wrong reasons. They're just buying it because they think of it as the best product. They assume that an index fund will always beat an active fund. That's not going to happen. The active fund, there will always be active funds that outperform the index. Just that you don't know which active fund will outperform.
Yeah.
You can't predict that. So they will see, oh, this fund is, that is the reason why I had said so many people, and I would say many of the people watching this, listening to this would say, they would have Parak FlexiCap and some Nifty or Sensex. Because if this works, that works. If this works, that works. That kind of, that kind of a scattergun approach. So you're already a single mutual fund is a scattergun approach because it buys a basket of stocks. Now you want to buy multiple funds, and you're basically buying a portfolio of scatterguns. So it's the entire portfolio is going to resemble a very expensive index fund, right? If you actually look. So that's the reason why I believe most people are not going to be successful. Most investors are generally not going to be successful because they don't have the right attitude for it.
Quick question, you can even shoot it down, Pattu. Perhaps you will. But would you like to say a minute or two on stop losses? Perhaps if you're investing in the stock market and not through mutual funds, should that have been kept in mind?
So for goal-based investing, stop loss is relevant. That much I can tell you. But for trading, yes, it is very crucial. I have heard many traders
swear by it.
Who swear by it, and they know when to stop. And they say that's the reason why they are successful. They know when to pull out. They know that things are going bad. They know when to pull out. But for the kind of investing that we talk about, which is goal based, and we talk about retirement planning, child planning, etc. Stop loss is not necessary. The asset allocation, the rebalancing, the de-risking, it will take care of the stop loss.
Great. And one final thing, Divakar, if you'll allow us, and Pattu, if you'll allow me. Of course, we like to end on a bit of philosophy, right? There's a common saying that to deal with anxiety and other issues that bog us down mentally, it always helps to think of the worst case scenario, right? Pattu, I would perhaps push you as well, right? I know you've had a solid, proven investing journey, but do you ever think about, even though I've done what I feel is right, if at some point in time, maybe I lose 50, 70% of my corpus, what happens in that, right? And I seem to battle with these thoughts as well, right? What if I lose everything? What if I lose every single rupee to my name? What then? Do you have any thoughts on that? I keep reassuring myself, I have my family. If we need to move out of this house, we'll move to a smaller city. If not the smaller city, we'll move to the mountain. Whatever it is, right? These thoughts keep coming in, right? Is it worth on an investing journey thinking about the worst case scenario so that you've already thought of it and therefore you're prepared to deal with it?
First of all, I think we really can't envision the worst case scenario. That is the problem. There are only so many. It's not then a risk, right? If it is something that we can combat and insure yourself against it, then it's not really. Ultimately, risk is something that you can't prepare yourself for. But there are, of course, basic slip-ups that you can handle. The old-timers, people who have been investing in the 70s, 80s, and so on, they have a very simple saying for this. Don't put any money in the stock market that you need in the next 5 years. it's a very profound statement. What that means is that you should be ready to lose 100% of the money in the stock market that you put in today. Of course, it will move up. The idea is that it will move up later. It may or may not. That's a different matter. But the hope is that it will. But the point is, even if you lose it, you still have funds from somewhere else to handle it. So that is why you need all this asset allocation, etc., etc. But you must also have some cash in hand. So that's where the employment matters.
Absolutely.
So you must have a very steady income stream that comes in that is market independent. That is also important.
Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. Divakar, thank you so much for doing this with us. I hope all our listeners and viewers watching are getting inspired to share their personal stories and journeys. It really enriches the show and helps so many people watching that perhaps Divakar's friend who are in the same situation as Divakar's friend. Divakar's friend, we're cheering you on as well. You have a great friend. And if you can trust the process, watch Let's Get Rich with Pattu and keep sharing your thoughts and experiences. We will be much more rich on this show. Pattu, thank you so much. Divakar, thank you so much. We'll see you next week on Let's Get Rich with Pattu.
Take care. Bye bye.